Toronto launches a 2-week enforcement blitz targeting drivers in no stopping zones. How do you make sure you don't get a ticket, and will this help the rush hour drive? We're live with the latest tonight.
Plus, Peel police say that they've dismantled a violent criminal network tied to the tow truck industry. 18 people charged, $4 million in cash, and tow trucks have been recovered.
G7 world leaders arrive in Canada as Mark Carney and Donald Trump come face to face again amid trade tensions. Could the high-stakes summit move the needle on negotiations?
And a walkout is held over the future of a Toronto school for young women with special needs after the TDSB canceled its grade 9 enrollment. We're going to hear from students and parents at Hayden Park.
You're watching Live at 5.
Good evening. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Lena Latifat. Thanks for joining us and welcome to Live at 5. It is a move that is expected to speed up the impossible rush hour drive in our city. Toronto police in the city are kicking off a 2-week enforcement blitz targeting drivers who stop in no stopping zones.
Let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan, who's downtown, for more on the initiative and the penalties. Melissa.
Hey there, Bakari and Lena. Yeah, so we're looking at some of that congestion behind me right now at Spadina and Fort York. The idea, get those vehicles moving faster and not having some obstacles in the way that could slow things down. So it is in the name, no stopping zones. You're not supposed to stop there. In areas where there are places like bus stops, streetcar stops, where there are fire hydrants, where there are pedestrian walk zones, just to name a few, you're not supposed to stop your car there. And what's happening this week and next week, a blitz is underway. So we're seeing parking enforcement officers going out in full force on those busy stretches in our city, which is kind of like all of them. But think Spadina, think Dundas, University, Yonge, Gerrard, Jarvis. They're going to be out in force to hand out more tickets to anyone caught stopping in these no stopping zones. What does that mean? If a ticket is coming your way, it's $190. And if your vehicle is left behind, there's a chance it could be towed as well. So they want to get the message out that slowing down, stopping in these areas, it is not good for congestion. So between 3 and 7 p.m. this week and next week, over this 2-week period, this blitz is underway to keep traffic rolling during the rush hour. It was City Council that decided to roll out this blitz during this 2-week period in June, and they're going to do the whole thing again in September just to get that message out. So no stopping in no stopping zones is what they want people to think about when they're hitting the road over the next little while. And again, if you're caught, the ticket, $190. Going to toss things back to you.
Melissa Duggan, thanks so much for that. No thanks. 503, 23 degrees. Also a no thanks to this drive. Let's get a check on that with CP24's Adjoa and Sia.
I like that, Lena. Yeah, it's a no thanks drive. Exactly. If you're making your way out on the major routes, though, things are getting a little bit better on the northbound lanes of the 404, just north of the 407. So we had a collision lasted the last little bit. It was the HOV. 2 left lanes were out following this crash. Everything did clear the scene, but the backlog still there, pretty significant. Does extend from Finch. It should start to dissipate now that those problems are gone. 401 still really busy, and MTO's reporting problems on the eastbound 401 in the collectors through Weston. I think it was this stall. It's mainly off to the side, was in the right lane, so that's some more good news. And if you're traveling on the 410, not the best news. It is a crawl if you're traveling into Brampton. The delays do start from Steeles, and they don't ease up until you pass about Sandalwood. Outside of camera view, collision blocking lanes on Bayview and Pottery Road. Also Leslie north of Finch. Also DuPont and Christie, another crash. I'll send it back to you both.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
A large sinkhole has left a vehicle stranded. This happened in Etobicoke.
Yeah, this is the scene at Manster Road and North Queen, just north of the Queensway. You can see an SUV stuck in a hole right in the middle of the road. Police say the driver had to be helped out of the vehicle. Lots of emergency crews are on scene, but no injuries have been reported. Well, one person is dead after an industrial accident. This happened in North York.
Emergency crews were called to a site in the Western Road and Finmar Drive area. This is near Finch. It was around 8:30 this morning, 4 reports of a person who was trapped. So police say it appears a concrete slab fell on a worker. The Ministry of Labor is investigating.
A man in his 40s has been seriously injured in a stabbing in St. Jamestown.
Yeah, emergency crews were called to the Parliament and Wellesley area just after 3:30 in the morning. The victim was found suffering from stab wounds. He was taken to hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries, and police are now searching for a male suspect described as being 6 feet tall, 35 to 40 years old, with a heavy build, short black hair, and tattoos on his left forearm. So he was last seen wearing a black sweater and black sweatpants.
Well, police are on the lookout for a man wanted on a Canada-wide warrant who's known to frequent Toronto.
The Repeat Offender Parole Enforcement Squad, also known as ROPE, is looking for this man, 40-year-old Jeffrey Blue Cloud, and police say that he's wanted for breaching a long-term supervision order. He is serving a 1 year and 3 month sentence for robbery charges. Blue Cloud is described as being 5'8", 176 pounds. He also has several tattoos, including a Buddha and koi fish on his right arm. Anyone with information, you're asked to call police or Crime Stoppers.
And now to Peel Region, where 18 people are facing nearly 100 charges after police dismantled an organized crime network connected to the tow truck industry. They also recovered more than $4 million in assets.
Okay, let's go live to CP24's crime analyst Eve Ryan, who's outside of Peel Police headquarters for a closer look at Project Outsource.
Yeah, but Corey and Lena, Project Outsource was an 11-month project that was ran by Peel Regional Police. It had support of the neighboring GTA police services as well. Police allege that these 18 people that were arrested were all part of a criminal organization who police say they have now disrupted and dismantled. Police say that this group was responsible for extorting people in the South Asian community. They were also responsible, according to Peel Regional Police, for staging car accidents and then defrauding insurance companies out of large sums of money. And there was 24 vehicles recovered, stolen vehicles recovered, and 18 of those stolen vehicles were tow trucks. 6 firearms recovered, 18 people arrested, including the 2 ringleaders, and as you said, $4 million in assets seized and $40,000 in cash. At this press conference today, we heard from Peel's police chief, and here's some of what he said. Let's listen.
What our investigators have demonstrated is that organized crime is no longer specialized in one particular area. A week ago in Peel, we spoke about a large seizure of drugs that was also involved with a polymarket organized crime entity. And today is another example of what diversification for criminal groups looks like, because they find different ways to seek vulnerabilities, exploit them, turn them into profits, and then into harm to our community.
I am told that of the 18 people that were arrested in this latest project, 9 of them were out on a previous bail release. And of the 7 that have been processed with this latest group of arrests, 6 of those 7 have been released as well on bail. I'll send it back to you guys.
Okay, CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan. Steve, thanks a lot. It's 5:08, 24 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Prime Minister Mark Carney and Donald Trump meet again at the G7 summit in Alberta today. The U.S. president arrived donning a Canada-U.S. pin. We'll tell you what he said about a trade deal with Canada.
U.S. President Donald Trump is attending the G7 summit in Alberta. This is amid trade tensions with Canada.
Yeah, he came face to face with Prime Minister Mark Carney once again today. This time it was on Canadian soil. Let's bring in CP24's Beatrice Faisman for more on what happened in Kananaskis on day one, and the U.S. president talking about concepts of a trade deal with Canada. Beatrice.
Certainly, and we're starting to hear some, positivity emerging from this meeting, although both the Canadian and American delegation keeping their cards pretty close to their vest when it comes to the actual conversation behind closed doors. I can tell you that Canada's ambassador to the United States, Kirsten Hillman, and Dominique LeBlanc, Canada's minister in charge of U.S.-Canada trade, emerged from a meeting this afternoon, kind of a meeting that happened after the meeting with the U.S. president and the prime minister. Dominique LeBlanc saying today's meeting was long, substantive, and productive, saying that Trump and Carney spoke about several issues, including the situation in the Middle East, along with tariffs. He added he's confident that progress was made during the meeting and that officials from the 2 countries will meet again later this week. We also heard from the U.S. ambassador to Canada, who says that we've got a president now who's convinced of a policy, a.k.a. those tariffs, to achieve some of his goals. She says the role that the Canadian delegation is playing is to convince the the U.S. president that applying that trade and tariff policy to Canada is detrimental to his overall goals, adding that she feels as though both sides are actually starting to understand one another a little bit better. Here's more from Kirsten Hillman.
Our goal is to get the tariffs off, to get to a place of stability, and to then, talk to the president about if there's a transformation to happen in the way in which we trade. Let's talk about that. We have had a lot of, especially recently, I think, productive conversations where we are understanding each other better, or we feel they're understanding us better.
And when it comes to the optimism about whether a trade deal between Canada and the U.S. could be signed later this week, Dominique LeBlanc saying he's always optimistic but not naive, adding there's work to do. You notice right there, actually, and we'll show our viewers a closer image. There you see the U.S. president at the roundtable at the G7 summit, the U.S. flag pin at the top, underneath it a second pin with the U.S. and Canadian flag. That's being viewed as a positive sign, a sign of respect from Donald Trump to the Canadian Prime Minister, who, and he has said earlier today that they've developed a positive relationship, though Donald Trump maintains, I'm a tariff guy. Mark Carney has different economic policies, and let's see if we can kind of meet somewhere in the middle and work something out. Here's a bit of what we heard at the photo op earlier this morning.
G7 is nothing without U.S. leadership, and your personal leadership of the United States, many issues, geopolitics, economic, technology, and working hand in hand with the United States.
We've developed a very good relationship, and we're going to be talking about trade and many other things.
Do you think a deal is achievable within days, within weeks? Is there that kind of runway?
Yeah, it's achievable. Both parties have to agree. Yeah, sure.
And this summit, incredibly important, Lena and Bakari, the first time Donald Trump is here on Canadian soil since he stormed out of the G7 summit back in 2018. And the first time he's been here in our country as well since he started talking about annexing Canada and having it become a member of the United States as its 51st state. This conversation, by the way, we'll continue it here on CP24 at 5:30. We've got former Deputy Prime Minister John Manley coming to join us. He was Foreign Affairs Minister during the 9/11 attacks. So we'll get his unique perspective on the state of Canada-U.S. relations.
Yeah, it'll be very good to hear from him. Looking forward to that conversation. Thanks, Beatrice. In Ottawa, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre will face a leadership review vote at the party's policy convention taking place in Calgary.
So the exact dates of the convention, they have not yet been confirmed, but it is expected to be held sometime in January. So Conservatives gained 22 seats in the federal election, but Poilievre lost his own seat in the Ottawa area, which he'd held since 2004. So he's now set to run in a by-election in the Alberta riding of Battle River Crowfoot. This is after Conservative MP Damien Carrick stepped aside to allow the Conservative leader another shot at winning a seat.
Well, Canadian premiers met with U.S. lawmakers in Boston today to discuss collaboration in response to American tariffs.
CP24's Andrew Brennan has more on this and joins us live from the newsroom. Andrew.
Well, Bakari, Lena, the way that our premier described the meeting today when he was on CNN earlier in the late morning, he called it a love-in. The problem is that you're dealing with a lot of leaders of provinces or states that, have a decent amount of authority over the boundaries that within their fiefdoms, let's call them for lack of a better word. But outside of them, they have very little power. They can't create unilateral trade deals that go against the free trade agreement that Canada signed with the U.S. and Mexico, that Donald Trump, the American president, now wants to renegotiate. They also can't just decide to get away with tariffs because, well, those are decided by the countries that they are a part of. So a lot of this seemingly is an exercise in symbolic solidarity. Here's more from the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul.
Canada isn't the problem, neither is the U.S. China is the single problem. They've cut off the U.S. for any critical minerals that they want to use for either technology, aerospace, or military use. Ontario has more critical minerals than anywhere in the entire world. And who do I want to send them to? I want to send them to our closest friends and allies. I've said over and over again, I love Americans, I love the U.S., but Canadians love Americans. I know Americans love Canadians. And the rhetoric that we've been hearing out of the president is unfortunate. We want to continue to grow our relationship, give certainty to the world that the U.S. and Canada is open for business.
These are relationships that have now been damaged because of rhetoric out of Washington, as well as tariffs, which, how do you spell tariff? It is nothing more than a TAX tax. And Americans need to know that this is a tax on everything they buy, and it hurts our competitiveness. And we stand to lose hundreds of thousands of jobs if these truly go into effect as envisioned.
Hearing as well from Ontario's Premier, our Premier Doug Ford. And one of the big things that seemingly has come out of this meeting is an agreement that tariffs are bad, at least according to those that are at the table, and they would like to find a way forward. But really what it comes down to, Lena Bakari, is ultimately, as much as they at this table had some thoughts about what they want ultimately for our economic ties between Canada and the United States, it really comes down to our leaders, Mark Carney and Donald Trump, figuring things out. Till then, we're kind of stuck in the middle. Back to you.
Yeah, can they convince Donald Trump that tariffs are a bad thing? That's the big question.
He's a tariff guy, remember.
He loves tariffs. Andrew, thanks so much. It's 5:17, 24 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
Well, students and parents staged a walkout at a TDSB special needs high school today. We're going to have more on the concerns about the future of that facility. That's coming up. Students walked out today at a Toronto high school for girls with special needs over concerns about the school's future.
Let's bring in CP24's Sija Liu with more on the story and the concerns. Sija.
Lena Bakari, students at Hayden Park Secondary School are trying to save their school. That's why they held a walkout today, hoping the TDSB reverses their decision to cancel enrollment for upcoming grade 9 students in the fall. Now, this is not your typical high school. Hayden Park Secondary started in 1923 as a vocational school, but now it is the only all-girls high school focused on students with special needs in the school board. They offer smaller class sizes with extra classroom support, specialized hands-on program, really a unique learning experience. And a lot of these students and parents say they didn't thrive at a traditional school setting, but they are doing well here. Now, TDSB says it is not enrolling grade 9 students because enrollment has declined over the years. They also say that nearby schools have been doing a better job at accommodating a wider range of students. They also say that no decision has been made at this time in terms of the long-term plan for Hayden Park and that they'll continue to monitor its enrollment. But that's what parents and students are scared of. They're scared that this is the beginning of the end and that it starts with canceling the enrollment for grade 9 and that the schools would ultimately close. Here's more concern from parents, and we also hear from the local school board trustee on this.
I've just said, okay, we have to go to our homeschool, and now I don't even know if that's going to be possible. So it feels so unfair. But beyond that, like this is a reflection of the way that kids with disabilities in general are valued in the school board.
I've always described Hayden Park as a safe haven. It really is. It allows these students, the students who have special education, who have disabilities, exceptionalities, mild intellectual disabilities, allows them to gain the academic as well as life skills that they need to move on and be successful in their lives.
The school board says only 9 grade 9 students applied to be in the upcoming school year and that those students will be sent to separate schools. And this cancellation is coming as the province and the school board is dealing with a budget battle. The school board is trying to make cuts to balance the books. It currently has a $58 million deficit for the upcoming school year. And parents and students are saying this is also a chronic funding problem when it comes to schools. So Lena Bakari, a bigger conversation as well, as the school board is dealing with that budget issue.
All right, Sija, thanks so much for this. Toronto's arts community is launching a new campaign aimed at connecting residents.
The Together Through Arts campaign, it aims to draw attention to organizations that bring people together with the goal of building understanding across cultures and celebrate the diversity of Toronto's communities.
This campaign is about building this empathy with people and fight against the rising divisiveness we see in the world. After all, Toronto's motto is diversity, our strength. The city of Toronto is a global beacon of hope. People from all around the world come here to build a new life.
Arts and culture activities are happening across this great city in so many different ways. And I want to echo Mayor Chow in inviting all Toronto arts groups to be part of this initiative. Organizations can get involved by promoting the initiative within their own communities and on social media, and by sharing what they are doing over the coming months, an exhibit, an event, a performance, a conversation, as part of an online events listing. Arts and culture events are spaces of connection and exchange for an incredible array of Torontonians.
And Together Through Art, it'll feature an active listing of events and activities going on all across the city. So organizations offering community building activities, you can join the initiative just by submitting an event.
You're watching Live at 5 on Toronto's Breaking News, CP24.
And coming up, we're going to tell you about a new program that begins later this week. It'll offer free admission to national parks and historic sites. A lot of Canada's landmarks will soon be welcoming visitors for free or at discounted rates. It's part of an initiative meant to promote tourism in the country.
Yeah, the Canada Strong Pass takes effect this week, Friday. It offers free admission to national parks, historic sites, and conservation areas. It also includes a 25% discount on camping fees at national parks, free national museum admission for kids, and 50% off for 18 to 24-year-olds. Some provincial and territorial museums are also taking part. There is no physical pass, and visitors can just show up at participating locations.
From museums and railroads to national parks and camping spots, our government is making it easier for families to choose Canada as they make their summer plans and to enjoy the places and experiences that brings us together and make Canada strong.
Okay, and the program runs until September 2nd. Right now it's 5:28, 24 degrees. This is Live at 5.
U.S. President Donald Trump is on Canadian soil for the G7 Leaders Summit in Alberta amid an ongoing trade war. We're going to have reaction to day one coming up.
Toronto launches a 2-week enforcement blitz targeting drivers in no stopping zones. How do you make sure you don't get a ticket? And will this help the rush hour drive? We've got the latest coming up.
Plus, Peel police say they've dismantled a violent criminal network tied to the tow truck industry. 18 people are charged $4 million in cash, and tow trucks have been recovered.
And G7 world leaders arrive in Canada as Mark Carney and Donald Trump come face to face again amid trade tensions. Could the high-stakes summit move the needle on negotiations?
And a walkout is held over the future of a Toronto school for young girls with special needs after the TDSB cancels its grade 9 enrollment. We'll hear from parents and students at Hayden Park.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Lena Latifat.
I'm Bakari Savage. So the G7 summit, it's happening right now in Kananaskis, Alberta.
All of us around this table are reinforcing our militaries and security services for the new world. But we all know that there can be no security without economic prosperity, and no prosperity without resilience. And in a world where shocks flow across the borders, that resilience comes from cooperation.
Prime Minister Mark Carney was flanked by U.S. President Donald Trump and French President Emmanuel Macron as the summit opened. This is Carney's first major summit as Prime Minister. He's meeting with leaders from the U.S., France, Germany, Japan, the U.K., and Italy, as well as the European Union over the next 2 days.
Well, a big
G7 is nothing
Trump
without
today.
U.S. leadership. And your personal leadership of the United States, many issues, geopolitics, economic, technology, and working hand in hand with the United States.
We've developed a very good relationship, and we're going to be talking about trade and many other things.
Do you think a deal is achievable within days, within weeks? Is there that kind of runway?
Yeah, it's achievable. Both parties have to agree. Yeah, sure. I think we have different concepts. I have a tariff concept. Mark has a different concept, which is something that some people like. But we're going to see if we can get to the bottom of it today. I'm a tariff person. I've always been a tariff. Simple, it's easy, it's precise, and it just goes very quickly. And I think Mark has a more complex idea, but also very good. So we're going to look at both, and we're going to see what we're going to come out with something, hopefully.
A lot to unpack there, just based on the body language alone. CP24's Beatrice Faisman joins us live with more on the agenda. Beatrice.
Lena Bakari, let's unpack that now with John Manley, former Deputy Prime Minister of this country under Jean Chrétien. Sir, thanks so much for making time for us here on CP24. Let's start with the remarks. We heard from the Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc saying he feels optimistic but not naive after this first round of conversations. Donald Trump saying, sure, both sides can make an agreement if they agree. How tough is that if? How tough is it to get to that point?
Well, I guess there's always an agreement if both sides agree. It's kind of a tautology. But I think there are some stumbling blocks here. First of all, Canada has an agreement with the United States. We entered it after a long negotiation, signed it with the President of the United States at the time, who happens to have been Donald Trump, in 2018. And that provided for essentially duty-free access to the U.S. market. On his first day in office, he essentially broke his promise. So question one for Mark Carney is, does he have a reliable counterparty with whom it's worthwhile to make an agreement? Or can we expect the president to renege despite having to agree to various things? Secondly, can we get an agreement that is of lasting duration? One of the possible outcomes, because of the framework that was agreed to in the USMCA, signed in 2018, is this periodic review with any country being able to give notice of withdrawal. And the third thing is that the United States, even though it has lost decisions at the dispute resolution panel, declines to enforce the decisions that have been rendered. So you have that disrespect for the process, a disrespect for the agreement. I think it's going to be tough without some pretty clear indication that we have something that we can rely upon and the Canadian companies can rely upon.
Ambassador Hillman came out of the first round of meetings saying they're working with a president who is convinced that his tariff policy is going to get him closer to his overall goals, and that the Canadians are convinced that this policy against Canada is going to be detrimental to actually getting the U.S. president closer to his goals. How do you square that? How do the Canadians actually get through to this president?
I don't think that it's a matter of we can get through to him. I think it's a matter of figuring out where we have leverage and where we can perhaps be persuasive. He desperately wants some access to some of the mineral wealth that we have in this country. Rare earth, as they're sometimes called, minerals, not because they're so rare, but because they're really hard to get at, and because they're found in very small quantities. We've got a lot of them. They need them. They need them for their technology equipment. And if they don't get them from us, they're pretty much resigned to having to get them from China, which is farther down on his list than Canada is. So we've got some leverage in some areas. In the auto sector, for example, it would cost billions of dollars to relocate manufacturing operations from Canada and from Mexico into the United States. Quite apart from whether they could find the workers to do those jobs, who's going to pay those billions of dollars in capital expenditures? The customers that buy the cars have no desire to pay an extra $5,000 for their Ford 150s. People want the lowest price that they can get, and they're going to continue to look for that. So I think on our side, we're saying, look, ultimately facts matter. We believe that tariffs are ultimately paid for by domestic consumers, and tariffs also shelter inefficient industries. And so that will, in time, result in higher prices for Americans, lost jobs, and a slower economy. The question is, do Canadians have a higher pain threshold than Trump supporters in the United States have? Because when his supporters, when his core base starts to turn against him, that's when he can be persuaded.
Sir, you served this country as our foreign affairs minister in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, a tragedy that really showed the true bond between our two nations. Today, we saw the U.S. president wearing a pin that had the Canadian and U.S. flag on his lapel. What do you make of that? Was that symbolic, or was this a showman of a president being a showman after talking about annexing our country?
Yeah, he's coming to Canada. I'm sure they, like I do, they have a drawer full of these pins. Mine all have the Canadian flag and something else. So somebody gave him the pin and said, "You're going to Canada, you should wear this one," because he wears a U.S. flag pin all the time. So I don't read anything into that. I mean, let's face it, I don't think he was, in his dreams, he might have thought about annexing Canada, and he got a rise out of people when he said it. So, but was he serious about it? I don't think so. I think that for whatever reason, our former prime minister triggered his bully instinct, and he took it out on him. But I'm not concerned about that. I am concerned about the impact for our economy, given that we have spent 35 years building an integration with the U.S. economy strategy. And if that's no longer our strategy, we're going to need to think of a new one, and fast. And it's not going to be easy to initiate.
Certainly, these are pivotal times for our country, negotiations with the United States. John Manley, former Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, thank you so much for your time and your expertise this evening.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Lena and Bakari will have to wait and see what comes from these talks. They, of course, will continue tomorrow as well.
Okay, some interesting analysis there, Beatrice. Thanks for that. It's 5:39, 24 degrees. Let's switch gears. Get a check on the rush hour drive with Adjoa and Cia.
Thank you, Lena. Yeah, watching problems impacting the drive a little bit on the 401 westbound, happening in the express approaching the 403. It is a stall, and you know what? As I'm speaking, they're leaving. So that's a good sign for commuters that are just trying to make their way home west of here. It does get busier as you travel into Mississauga. Then eastbound 401 into Durham was seeing a little bit of a bottleneck just through Brock Road, past Brock Road. Had a collision blocking the left lane and shoulder. It also cleared. So we have a theme here. Things are starting to get a little bit better. Still looking at delays on the northbound 427 from Dundas up to the 401, and still quite the slow drive. QEW Niagara bound delays start as you make your way in towards Mississauga, Oakville, and they continue right on out as you travel into Burlington. But again, no live lane problems on city streets in Etobicoke. Crews on scene of a collision blocking lanes on Evans and Brown's line. I'll send it back to you both.
All right, thanks, Aj. And more now on trade negotiations with the U.S. Getting a deal done. That was top of mind for Canadian premiers when they met with U.S. lawmakers in Boston today.
CP24's Andrew Brennan joins us live with more on this. Andrew.
Well, Lena, Bakari, a lot of the focus is really on Alberta, but the premiers, really, you're talking about the maritime provinces and Ontario. So Ontario, with having the most population, it's really getting the lion's share of attention here. But they all went down today to speak with essentially their counterparts, the state governors from New England. And that included Massachusetts and New York. And a lot of the things that came out of this meeting, as the man who is on your screen and now on your screen with everyone else, Premier Doug Ford put it, it was a love-in with a lot of the similar thoughts on tariffs or how effective they believe they are not, and also conversations about trying to drum up tourism on both sides of the border, since it has been sluggish, to say the least, since the tariff talks really ramped up following Inauguration Day in January. But I want you to listen to both Doug Ford, our premier, and Kathy Hochul, the New York governor right now, and hear if you see some through lines here.
Leaders around the world that I've talked to are dumbfounded. They've stopped, took a few steps back and said, I can't believe the president's going after your country. And we're in disbelief too. But now we're going to move forward. Energy is absolutely critical. You heard Governor Hochul. You see the data hubs that are going up, and they suck more energy than anything on Earth. And where are you going to get your energy? Hopefully from Quebec, from New Brunswick, from Ontario.
I don't want any more rhetoric, tariffs, or anything that's going to set our relationship further back than it already has been. Now it's time to start healing and having our own individual relationships between New York, our own states, and the various provinces to secure our energy future, regardless of what happens in Washington. We have to operate as independent actors in this space and think of ourselves, because clearly Washington is not.
You're hearing Governor Hochul there talking about healing the relationship. The problem is, Lena Bakari, these are really, and I'm talking about the state governors here and the premiers, they're essentially much like children in a divorce. They can say that they want the relationship to go back to the way it was, but they can't get mom and dad back together, or at least they can't on their own. So ultimately, they had a talk today, but the real conversation and the real challenges here are going to be decided potentially in Alberta. Back to you.
Okay, joining us live from the newsroom, CP24's Andrew Brennan. Well, CTV News has learned that Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre will face a leadership review vote. This is going to be at the party's policy convention in Calgary.
The convention is expected to be held in January. The Conservatives gained 22 seats in the federal election, but Pierre Poilievre lost his own seat in the Ottawa area, which he has held since 2004. He is now set to run in a by-election in Alberta, which is expected to be held this summer.
It's 5:43, 24 degrees. This is Live at 5.
A live look at Bremner and Spadina tonight, where police and the city are kicking off a 2-week rush hour traffic blitz, going after drivers in no stopping zones. We'll tell you more next.
Well, it's a move that's expected to speed up the impossible rush hour drive, if you will.
Yeah, Toronto police and the city are kicking off a 2-week enforcement blitz targeting drivers who stop in no stopping zones. Sounds simple, right? Well, still happening. Let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan downtown for more on the initiative and the fines. Melissa.
Yeah, Lena Bakari, you're right. It is a very simple concept. There are no stopping zones. You're not supposed to stop in them. And if you're caught doing that, you're going to get a ticket, $190. So there is this blitz on right now. There is a stepped up enforcement that's happening for the next 2 weeks. So we're going to see more traffic enforcement officers walking through areas that see this sort of behavior all throughout the downtown. High traffic areas throughout the city. I am on Spadina right now. You could see it there. You might be seeing it on Dundas, on Gerrard, on University, on Yonge, you name it. Basically anywhere there's a lot of traffic, you're going to see this sort of thing happen through to June 27th. Not only are you risking a ticket by stopping in a no stopping zone, there's also a chance your vehicle could be towed from that area if you happen to pop out of it for a second. So something you definitely want to avoid. The city decided earlier this year that they were going to have these 2-week blitzes, one this month and the next one in September, to really get the message out. You know, what we're watching behind me here at Spadina at this intersection, a very busy one, are these traffic enforcement officers that kind of are a mainstay now. We see them during the rush hours, getting people moving and making sure that they're not blocking the box. That's been another issue we've covered very closely, and just to make sure that traffic is going as it should be, as we have to endure so much congestion. So seeing those stopping vehicles in no stopping zones adds to the congestion. Those no stopping zones, you might see them at bus stops, at streetcar stops, pedestrian walking zones, fire hydrant areas as well. There are several different spots where the city does have signage up saying you cannot stop here, and they're just making sure that people are following the rules for the next 2 weeks during this blitz. Of course, that rule does apply outside of those blitz zones as well, but they want to hand out likely more tickets to make sure that they get that message across. Our colleagues at CTV News telling us today that the city usually is handing out about 72,000 of these tickets in no stopping zones. So they have been out before, and you expect that total to be beefed up a little bit during this blitz period. So save yourself $190. Save yourself from getting your vehicle towed by not stopping in a no stopping zone. Again, it's through to June 27th, Alina Bakari, that this blitz is going to be carried out throughout the city. Back to you.
Okay, CP24's Melissa Duggan. Thanks, Melissa. Now let's hop over to Peel Region. This is where 18 people are facing nearly 100 charges after police dismantled an organized crime network. This was connected to the tow truck industry.
They have also recovered more than $4 million in assets. Let's get all the details from our crime analyst, Steve Ryan, who's outside Peel Police Headquarters for a closer look at Project Outsource. Steve.
Yeah, Alina Bakari, Project Outsource was a collaborative, intelligence-led policing project that resulted in dozens of arrests. As Lena, you were talking about there, 18 people were arrested, including the two ringleaders of this, what police are calling a organized crime syndicate. They stole vehicles. 18 tow trucks were recovered. 6 handguns were recovered. And police allege that this group was responsible for extorting members of the South Asian community in Peel region. They are also accused of staging accidents and fraudulently defrauding or making false applications to insurance companies. And they were also running what appears to be weapons when it comes to the seizure of 6 firearms as well. Now, we did speak with the detective sergeant in charge of this investigation earlier on, and here is some of what he said. Let's listen.
The outsourced name represents the subcontracting or delegation of offenses through the criminal organization. So as the deputy pointed out, we have our 2 leaders here over to the left. And not only do we have individuals that are committing crimes, but they are being told when to commit crimes and how to commit them. And that's the reason for the selection of that name.
$40 million in assets were seized. $40,000 in cash was seized as well. And of the 18 people arrested, 9 of them, I'm told, were out on a previous bail release. And of the 7 who were now arrested, of the 7 that were processed through the courts, 6 of those have since been released on a bail. Send it back to you guys.
All right, Steve, thanks for this. 5:50, 24 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
Students and parents staged a walkout at a TDSB special needs high school today. We'll have more on the concerns about the future of that facility.
Welcome back. Students walked out today at a Toronto high school for girls with special needs over concerns about that school's future.
Let's bring in CP24 CJ Lou with more on this story. CJ.
Lena Bakari, students at Hayden Park Secondary School are fighting for the school's future. They fear that it is in jeopardy. This is after the Toronto District School Board decided not to accept any grade 9 students for the upcoming school year, canceling enrollment. Now, Hayden Park Secondary isn't your regular school. It's quite unique. It is the only all-girls high school catered to students with special needs. So they offer smaller class sizes, additional supports, unique programs catered to the needs of these girls. Now, parents say students who don't do well in traditional large classrooms have done really well at this school, but now they're worried because the TDSB says it is canceling enrollment for grade 9. It says it's doing that because enrollment has declined over the years, that neighborhood schools are doing a better job at expanding their programs. Here's some more concern from parents.
It's horrific to think that there are students now that will not experience what Hayden Park has to offer for 7 years of their lives. This school formed Jessica. She's a global advocate and ambassador, and without their support, my husband and I gave her support, but what they gave her here is par none.
This is just constant, and then now they're taking this beautiful program. This isn't the first one. This isn't the first time something like this has happened, but they're taking this program away, and it's absolutely devastating.
And the school board says only 9 students in grade 9 enrolled for the next year, but they have not made a decision on the long-term plan for that school.
All right, CP24 CJ Lou, thanks a lot. It's 5:55, 24 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, Hockey Canada has named the first 6 players for the men's Olympic team. We'll take a look at who made the cut next. Welcome back. Some of the players who helped lead Canada to victory at the Four Nations face-off are set to represent our country at next year's Olympics.
Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Cal McCarr, Connor McDavid, Braden Point, Sam Reinhart. They're the first 6 athletes to be named to Team Canada's roster for the Milano Cortina Winter Games. Crosby's a 2-time Olympic champion, while McKinnon, McCarr, McDavid, Point, and Reinhart will make their Olympic debuts in 2026. And GM Doug Armstrong says that the 6 players will provide a strong foundation for a successful team.
That is a very strong team. 5:59, 24 degrees. You've been watching Toronto's breaking news, CP24.
Thank you for watching. CTV News at 6 is next.